Thank you, my dear Firkins. Friends, I chose this date today to sit with you. I'm happy to be alive. And I'm happy to be alive after the Shoah. I'm happy we're here. And I know for some of you it's very personal, maybe for many of you, that you have family who died then. It still feels quite close. I actually want to say that most of what I will be offering today is my silence. And so I want to start with a song, which may be familiar to some of you. A song that we sing during the holidays, during the festivals, in the Yizkor prayer, which is a prayer of remembrance for our deceased loved ones, close ones. And it's been extended since the Shoah to also to the 6 million. And it starts with these words, and I just want to translate for us the opening words of the song we're going to start with. El Maleh Rachamim, the full of compassion, because we really need this right now. So I'm going to share my screen. And I want to invite you to listen to this song and to the words, whether you understand them or not at this time, with all your heart, with all your being.
The prayer calls those who were killed, Kedushim v'tehorim, holy and pure. It's actually a difficult Torah that I want to share with you today. It's a difficult Torah because we have a disturbing parallel between this prayer and what happened then and what happens in the biblical narrative to Nadav and Avihu, Aaron's son. Our prayer says that they died lekiddush Hashem, that they died for the sanctification of the name. There is this principle in the Jewish tradition that someone who is killed because they are Jewish, it's considered as if they died for the sanctification of the name of God. They are sanctified. They're sanctified. And holy, kadosh, really means dedicated, aval, dedicated, in that case, all the way. And they become the korban olah. It's one of the korbanot that we've learned about in Parashat Tzav, in Parashat Vayikra. The korban olah is an offering that burns entirely. Normally, people would bring offerings to the temple. And just like in ancient Egypt, or at the time, this is really it was part of the economy and the social economy that would bring my sheep and my flour to the temple, and the priests would, roast them and offer them to the fire and bake breads with my flour offering. And they would eat a part of it and I would eat a part of it, depending on the offerings. Sometimes only them, sometimes me too. There was one offering that nobody got to eat any of. It was entirely burnt, entirely going up into smoke, into flame. It's called the korban olah, the one that goes up. That's what it means. And it's been translated in English as the Holocaust offering. And this is a reason, some of you may know why, in France, for instance, we don't use the word Holocaust. We use the word HaShoah in Hebrew, which means catastrophe, because we don't want to call what happened the name of an offering. But this is the term that was chosen, Holocaust in English, because of this principle of if someone is killed because they're Jewish, then it's as if they became this korban olah, this offering, entirely burnt in unification with the divine. Everything I'm saying right now is beyond my understanding. Just so you know, we are talking about something that is beyond our understanding. So I feel ashamed to use my words right now. And I think I'm not the only one. I think we're all Aaron today. So I want to share with you my soul sheet. If I find it.
It's gonna take a minute, but I'm gonna tell you before I share it while I'm looking for it. The
link is in the chat.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to pull out the PDF actually, and not the. But I think people are. Okay, let's see if I can find it. Okay, I'm gonna share this. It's very, very short. I'm gonna share it like this. Okay. It's not a PDF, but I want to take the time. Oops. זה לא מה שרציתי, רגע. Okay. ויאמר משה אל אהרון, הוא אשר דיבר השם לאמור. This is after the death of the sons of Aaron, and I just want to recap what happened. It's the day of the inauguration of the Mishkan. Everybody's ready. It's the day of utter joy for everyone. Everybody brings their offerings as they're instructed to. And then there is a fire that comes down from the sky and burns the offerings on the altar. And then suddenly Nadav and Avihu, they have a spontaneous movement, the two of the sons of Aaron, and they bring an offering that was not instructed. And the fire that comes down from the sky, instead of devouring their offering on the altar, devours them. And they're burnt alive and they die. And this is what Moshe says. Okay? We could imagine that Moshe would say, why did they do that? You know, this is what he says. He says, this is what God spoke about when he was saying, Bikrovai Ekadesh. Ekdosh, pardon. From the ones who come close to me, I will be sanctified. Karov is close. The word korban comes from there. And here, they became the korban. They became the offering because of the way they did it. And God is saying, Ekadesh, I will be sanctified. It's this, I will be sanctified through the ones who come close to me, very close to me. Ve'al pnei kol ha'am echabed. And I will be honored in front of all the people. And so it's as if Moshe was trying to find ways, bediavad, as we say in Talmudic thinking, after the fact, to say to Aaron, before the fact, we would have hoped everything for this not to happen. But because it happened, perhaps this is what God means when God says, I am sanctified and I am honored in front of everyone through those who come really close to me and become one with me. Veidom Aaron, and Aaron stays silent, because what can you say that is rational in front of something that is so beyond understanding? And I really want to say again that this is really beyond human understanding. Okay, there is this thing that we don't know why people die in these circumstances, and who survived and who died and why. All we know in the Jewish tradition is that bediavad, after the fact, once it has happened, there are kadosh, there are kedoshim, those to whom that has happened. There are forms of fusion with the divine that happen through complete consummation, complete really, how do you say, disappearance, merging with the divine in this way. And it's difficult not to make parallels with October 7. And I'll share something with you that I shared last year already, so perhaps some of you have heard it. There was something terrible that happened in the month after October 7 in the Israeli society, where some religious Jews, very religious Israelis, were saying, oh, you see, a lot of those who died that day, it's because they were partying at a festival and not keeping Shabbat and not keeping Simchat Torah, and they were punished, which is completely absurd, because a lot of Jews who were observant were killed in their homes or in synagogues, you know. And then there was a Haredi, so Orthodox rabbi, who said, I never want to hear this again. Anyone who died on that day because they were Jewish, they are kadosh, they're holy. And so I just want to offer my silence today, just like Aaron, in front of the pain of the Shoah that is still really palpable in our hearts and in our memories so many decades after, and also the pains of what's happening today. what humans keep doing to other humans. And I want to invite you, and I'm very grateful that we have these days and these times to make space for that type of silence. The silence before what is beyond understanding, the silence before our pain, perhaps a silence that will make space for your tears, for your memories, for your grief. I want you to invest this silence just the way that it's meaningful to you today, just the way that it makes sense for you today. With a dedication today, if you'd like to share with me this dedication today for the 6 million who died in the Shoah, Lekidush Hashem. Just that, just really honoring the beyond understanding, honoring the pain and honoring their lives. So please sit in a way that's comfortable for you. Inviting the eyes to come to a close and inviting 2 or 3 deeper breaths at your own pace. Once you've found a very comfortable posture for your body, with the hips aligned underneath the shoulders and the feet aligned, if you're sitting on a chair, underneath the knees, with the lower back straight without straining. Once you've found this kind of natural alignment in which you feel the body can rest, I want to invite you to commit to stillness. Awake, alive stillness, so that you can really dive deep into presence. And perhaps it will be helpful, at least at the beginning, to really kind of ride each breath all the way, to be all the way with each in-breath and with each out-breath. You're breathing this precious neshima for these precious nishamot, this precious breath for these precious souls who are burned up entirely. Kind of bearing witness, sitting as bearing witness, making your silence the space it needs to be for you right now. And I offer my full presence for the last few breaths of this practice. Again, dedicating my breath of life to the elevation of their souls. My neshima for their neshama. Beautiful breath in, out. Thank you for sitting together. I'm not going to be saying Kaddish with Firkins or perhaps with Mark.
Yeah, I'll pick it up from here. Thank you so much, Rabba Mira, for this really beautiful practice for this day. And as Mira mentioned, for many of us, very personal. So I want to encourage anyone who has relatives who perished in the Shoah to note that in the chat. If you can, put the names of people you'd like to have remembered today. You can also do it after you recite Kaddish. And today we are all in Avelut and all in mourners. So I want to encourage those of you who feel comfortable to join us with the Kaddish. And thanks to Harry for sharing the words on the screen. And please join me by rising in body or in spirit, and you can unmute at this time.
Yikadal.
Yikadal.
Yikadal. Yikadash. Mira. Yamadivrach. Kona biyomatosa kayakal yeshua. Tokala. Bibim Mira Maya Yikara. Tadar Yitalev Yitalash Mirkushavrihu. Ela Minful Birchata Vishirata Tushbachata Nechemata. Amiran Biamal Vimru Amen. Yeshlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chaim Aleinu Israel Vimru Amen. Shalom Rama Kuya Se Shalom Al Yom Veshevel
Shalom Rabba Mishmaya. Naim Aleinu V'Yalchol Yisrael V'Imru Amen. Say Shalom B'Imam. Say Shalom Aleinu V'Yalchol Yisrael V'Yalchol Yosef Shalom.
Amen.
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 And friends, thank you so much for joining us today. I want to thank Perkins for stepping in to hold the hosting duties. Beginning of the sit, I was able to be here, but I'm happy to be here now and join Rabba Mira and any of you for a conversation about today's teaching, about today's practice, just reflect on the meaning of today. So please stick around or continue to sit with the stillness and the silence if you like, which, as Rabba Mira pointed out today, is really quite an appropriate response on a day like today. You can put questions in the chat. If there's a question, please write question all in caps or just share a reflection, or continue to share names if you like as well in the chat. And if you're leaving us, I do want to encourage you to join us tomorrow to sit into Shabbat with Emily Hertzland, who will be leading us as we sit into Shabbat together. Mira, that passage where speaks of the silence of Aharon, of Aaron, in response to this tragic death of two of his sons, in the face of an explanation by his brother, right, is just one of the most powerful passages in the whole Torah. And I think when I think about what is the appropriate response on Yom HaShoah, I always think silence, and stillness. But the other thing you mentioned, you used the word witnesses, that we are Adim. And as that generation of the Shoah passes and moves to the second and third generation, even more so, we have that sense of responsibility of witness. So I wanted to invite you to just talk a little bit more about, I guess what I experienced is a little bit of a tension between speaking up on behalf of the victim, speaking up on behind what happened, and this sense of, as you said, really, this is beyond words. It's ineffable. It's really anything that we say in some ways kind of lessens it, and we can maybe honor it most
Yeah.
authentically by being quiet and by being still.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
First of all, it's a powerful question. It's a difficult question, powerful as usual, usually your questions. I will say this. I think it's the power of being the witness and also the dignity of being a witness as opposed to being a commentator. And I think, when we talk about silence, it doesn't mean necessarily always staying silent, because as you said, actually, things need to be said in the world in the sense of being brought to awareness, right? So that they're not forgotten. And actually, Holocaust awareness and all the type of tragedies are very important. And I'll share with you today, I just saw randomly on social networks something that some organization did, which was just showing photos of children or teenagers who had been deported and died in the Shoah. And you had their photos and their names. And it was so real and they were so alive. And it was insane to see this and to see how many of them. And then at some point you have to stop counting because it's 6 million. So it's beyond, right? And I thought, how powerful and how concretely is this connecting me to what happened then and not so long ago? From the same kind of human madness that we can see some of it today, I feel, in the discourse about the Jews today in the world. Like this, right? It happened the same way, with the same kind of speed, with the same kind of very seductive rhetoric that has kind of set the crowds on fire. And this is what happened. So, but just going back to your question, what was powerful about this thing that I saw is that there were no commentaries. They were not They were not saying it was horrible. They're just showing these were humans. These were kids. This is them. This is this name. And we just want to remember this person. And this is the power of bearing witness, commenting, the more we get to sensitive topics, the more it can be tricky, because then we come with our own projections and interpretations. And there's something about bearing witness which comes from a place of dedication and humility. Some of you may be familiar with Bernie Glassman, right, who was doing these retreats in Auschwitz. They were called Bearing Witness retreats, and I've heard that they have been extremely powerful for people, extremely powerful. And I can share also on in my personal, very small personal level, in my personal life, it's very small. And on October 7th, since October 7th, immediately after I started writing something that's called the War Diary, and that was published in a French journal. And it was kind of very dry writing. I wasn't adding any commentaries on what was happening. No need to say this is horrible. It's just, this is what happened. This is what happened. This is what, it's just facts. And it was extremely healing. So I'm saying this because bearing witness is healing for us. It's healing for the people who read us, because they feel heard and seen, and they feel that their feelings are being named. And in a way, that's what we do in meditation practice. We bear witness to our own feelings and thoughts. And that's part of the shechur, like the process of healing from recurring thought patterns that keep us in prison.
I was thinking exactly that this is what we do every day. It's what we do in meditation practice, mindfulness practice, bear witness. And especially on a day like today, when the feelings either can be very repressed or so overwhelming, even more so, to be able to be silent, to be still, to be able to relate to it. The other question I was going to ask you, Mira, was the full name of the day in the Jewish calendar is Yom HaShoah, the Hagvura, and it's the week of Gvura that we here, right? And I think that is included because the date was chosen, I believe, in relation to the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. It's not the start of the uprising, but it marks the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising and the gevura of those who resisted. So I was wondering if you could like weave that in, how can we experience today as a day? How do we apply gevura to that? I mean, one of the ways I'm thinking about it is by using gevura to resist that temptation that Moses indulged in to like analyze and assign fault and blame, right? But to restrain ourselves from that, to set a boundary to limit ourselves. But I don't know what's anything come up for you with that?
Thank you for waving this with the counting of the Omer. It's very meaningful to me, yes. Well, gvura means several things. And what I think is interesting about gvura in this context is that they're both interpretations of what happened as gvura from God also, from the divine, from life, that sometimes life is harsh. Literally, there's this harshness. So there is this. And there's also gvura in a more positive sense, as you said, mentioning the uprising of the Warsaw Ghetto, the human gvura, the word gibor, champion, hero comes from there. And there were many, many heroic moments in the Shoah that we tend to forget about. And thank you for bringing this. Actually, I think it's quite important to remember also the number of people who resisted, who did. I mean, it's incredible. Also the revolts that there were in the camps. I mean, there were people who just were completely heroic. And then also people who were saved because of the bravery of other people. So it's also all part of it. The Shoah is not just, right? It's like within this bottomless darkness, there is gvura. There is the human gvura, which is power. Gvura is power. And so perhaps this is a week to reclaim our power, as humans. And part of it, I tend to think, is the power of the discipline of meditation practice. Because being strong, Ezeu Gibor, say the Pirkei Avot, which we're reading at this time, between Hakovesh et Yetzaro, the one who conquers their own inclination. And we have very similar teachings in the Buddhist world where, we learn that the real, champion and hero is not the one who conquers land, is the one who conquers themselves. And so it's not about going and shouting in the crowd and being the louder. It's, can I really master my own negative impulses? Gvura is this is the week. It's a great week. It's a powerful week.
I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about all the ways in which gevura is represented, even for those who didn't resist, and didn't fight back, but just in maintaining dignity, going through that, not yielding in that sense. There's gevura in that. So I think framing this also as a day of honoring all the different ways that we can use that innate sacred quality of gevura to maintain our integrity, to maintain our identity, to stand up for others. And I see in the chat, people are referencing here in the United States. Of course, there's so much going on in terms of vulnerable populations being at risk and the need for people to stand up and literally to protect them in the same way that you're describing. There are so many ways in which we can see that. And sometimes words are required. And I think what you're pointing out today really is so powerful, is that sometimes it's presence. It's just presence, strong presence, even in silence, that is really what's called for. So very much appreciate it.
Yeah. We have two hands up, and I'll invite these people with their hands up if they'd like to write in the chat if they have a question. And I just want to say I saw a question being asked 3 times, so I'm just going to address it very, very quickly. I'm merely asking if the 2 sons were burned alive, how come they were dragged by their tunics? And, first of all, God can do anything. If I'm replying on the very literal level, it's not a contradiction. I mean, it's very possible that, the fire came there and burned them, but their tunics were still there. Like, it's not the question. It's not so much the question here. I think I'm interested in the anxiety perhaps around this. Like, why is this so disturbing? Because we're reading this not on the chat level, or let's say there was a fire that came and burned my face and I died, or burned my heart, but it doesn't mean that all of me became fire. So there are many ways that but again, I can share that as far as I'm concerned, like, I don't read Torah as a history book. So it's not about facts for me, it's about meaning, and for many of us, and so I and I also am not how do you call it? I'm not a translator of Torah, so I'm not here to justify what the text is saying. What I'm interested in is in the meaning. So I hope that's helpful. There are many levels of reading of these texts, and I think here the inyan is more, how come they died, and then what's the reaction to a death that makes no sense? That's what we're discussing.
All right, so we're almost at time, Mira. I want to thank you. It was very powerful to hear that Male Rachamim at the beginning, and really that and the stillness was all I really needed today on this Yom HaShoah, the HaGavura, but connecting it so beautifully with the silence of Aaron, as you said, there's also some beautiful range of interpretations of what that silence is, a silence of protest, a silence of anger, a silence of resignation, a silence of acceptance. Each of us can find our own way for the silence to express what we needed to express today. So I want to thank you for just creating this very sacred time that we all need on this day. In particular, it's not an easy assignment. So I recognize that. Thank you for holding the space, the beautiful teaching, presence, and modeling for us all. And thanks to Harry.
I'm grateful. Yeah, I'm really grateful. Mm-hmm.
We're grateful to you. Thank you so much, as always.
Thank you.
And Harry, we're grateful to you for holding our space, each of you for being here. We hope to see you tomorrow to sit together in Tisha B'Av with Emily Herzl and everybody. So be well until then. Many blessings.
Thank you. Beautiful day, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.